The most important and longest-lasting relationship I will ever have is the one I have with myself. Every other relationship comes and goes. Even marriages that last until death do us part eventually end, and the only person I will ever be with is myself. My love for you will last forever. So, how is this relationship going? Do I want to get up in the morning? Isn't it great to be here? Is it fun to hang out with me? Do I appreciate my own thoughts? Do I make myself laugh? Do I appreciate my body? Is it enough for me to be alone? How can I have a good relationship with someone else if I don't have a good relationship with myself? If I don't love myself, I will always be looking for someone to complete me, make me happy, and help me achieve my goals. Being needy is the most effective way to attract a failed relationship. According to author Dyer, any relationship in which two people become one results in half people. You see, expecting the other person to fix your life or be your better half sets you up for failure. Before you enter a relationship, you should be completely satisfied with yourself. Also, if you are in a relationship with someone who does not love himself or herself, you will never be good enough for someone who is insecure, frustrated, jealous, self-loathing, or resentful. Too often we exhaust ourselves trying to be good enough for partners who have no idea how to accept our love because they don't love themselves. What we attract always reflects the qualities or beliefs we hold about ourselves and our relationships. What others think of us reflects their own limited view of life. We need to understand that life has always loved us unconditionally. People who are envious are extremely insecure. They have no regard for themselves. They have no belief in their own worth. Jealousy essentially says, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of love, so I'm sure my partner will cheat on me or leave me for someone else. This incites rage and blame. Staying with a jealous person implies that you do not deserve a loving relationship. It's frequently the same with spousal abusers. They either grow up in a family where abuse is normal and simply continue the family pattern, or they do not. Alternatively, they blame the world and their partners for their own lack of self-esteem. Abusers will never stop abusing unless they receive therapy. Abusers are almost always accompanied by a parent. They are deeply resentful of forgiveness, which is a critical issue for them. They must be aware of their patterns and willing to change. All of my relationships are influenced by the relationships I had with my parents. I was astounded when I first learned of this. Years ago, I attended Sandra's Loving Relationship Workshop, expecting to learn how to attract a loving relationship. I was shocked to learn that we would be working on our relationships with our parents. However, by the end of the workshop, I realized that the reason I had so many problems in my personal relationships was due to the very difficult childhood I had, the abuses my mother and I had endured, the abandonment and lovelessness of my childhood, all of which had transferred into my current relationships. It's no surprise that I attracted abusive men. It's no surprise they always abandoned me. It's no surprise that I have always felt unloved and unwanted. It's no surprise that I always seemed to have bosses who terrified me. I was simply putting into practice what I had learned as a child. That was a crucial workshop for me. I let go of a lot of resentment and learned to work on forgiveness. My relationship with myself improved dramatically, and I never again attracted an abusive man. So instead of wasting our time saying men are bad or women are bad, let's take a look at the relationships we had with our parents, or the relationships our parents had with each other. As an example, what are your current grievances against the men and women in your life? Consider how you would react. He never, he always. She never, she always. Men do. Women will not. Is this how your mother or father treated you? Is this how your mother treated your father? Or does this describe your father's treatment of your mother? How was love expressed in your home when you were a child? To resolve deep-seated fears about a relationship, you may need to go back to your childhood relationship with your father or mother. What do you have to give up to be in a relationship? How do I lose myself in a relationship? What messages did I receive as a child that led me to believe that relationships are difficult? Confirm your love for yourself. Perhaps you have a difficult time setting boundaries, and people take advantage of you. You could be sending the message that I don't value and respect myself, and that it's okay to abuse and take advantage of me. But this does not have to be the case any longer, because you began today to affirm your love and respect for yourself. Look in the mirror often and tell yourself, I love you. As simple as it appears, this is a very powerful healing affirmation. Your relationships will begin to reflect this love and respect as you grow in self-love. You might want to think about joining a support group like Codependence Anonymous or Al-Anon. These are wonderful groups that will help you establish boundaries in your relationships and reconnect with your inner self-love and respect. Look in your phone book for a group near you. I believe that we all have comfort zones in our interpersonal relationships. These comfort zones develop when we are very young. If our parents treated us with love and respect, we will associate this with being loved. If our parents were unable to treat us with love and respect, as was the case for many of us, we learn to accept this lack of acceptance. In order to meet our needs and feel loved and cared for, we associate being mistreated with being loved. This becomes a pattern for us. As a pattern develops in childhood, it becomes the pattern we use unconsciously in all of our relationships. There is no gender bias in the belief pattern that being treated badly equals love. This type of dysfunctional pattern, I believe, is more prevalent in women. Because women are culturally encouraged to express vulnerability, they are more willing to admit when their lives aren't working. However, this is changing as more men become willing to reconnect with their vulnerability. Robin Norwood's Women Who Love Too Much is an excellent relationship book. I also recommend Barbara DeAngelis's audio cassette album, Making Relationships Work. I open my heart to love, and I am safe, is an affirmation for all of us. We do all of our important work on ourselves. Wanting your mate to change is a subtle form of manipulation, a desire to have power over him or her, and it may even be self-righteousness because it implies that you are superior to him or her. Allow your life partners to be who they want to be and encourage their self-exploration, self-discovery, self-love, self-acceptance, and self-worth. If you are looking for a mate, I recommend making a list of all the qualities you want this person to have, and don't limit yourself to tall, dark, and handsome or cute, blonde, and pretty. Make a list of all the qualities you desire. Then go over this list and see how many of these characteristics you have. Are you willing to invest in developing the ones you don't have? Then ask yourself what it is within you that is denying or delaying this person's attraction to you. Are you willing to change your mind? Is there a part of you that still thinks you're unlovable or unworthy of love? Is there a habit or belief that keeps love at bay? Is there a part of you that says, I never want this. I won't fall in love because I have a marriage like my parents. Perhaps you are feeling isolated. It is difficult to feel connected to others when we are mostly disconnected from ourselves. In this case, you should devote some quality time to yourself right now. Make yourself your best friend. Rediscover what brings you joy, what you enjoy doing, and pamper and spoil yourself. We frequently look to others to make us feel loved and connected, when all they can do is reflect our own relationship with ourselves. What do you believe you are entitled to in an intimate relationship? When we come from a place of feeling, how can we ever get what we truly desire? It usually indicates that our belief system supports not deserving. Is this what you truly believe about yourself, that you can't have what you truly desire? This particular mental pattern does not have to be true for you. You can start making a change right now. Make a list of things you believe about men, women, love, marriage commitment, fidelity, trust, and children. These lists will reveal any negative beliefs that need to be changed. Some of the messages hidden in your consciousness may surprise you. Clean them out, and you might be surprised at how different your next relationship will be. It's worth noting that most psychics report that the majority of their clients ask at least one of three questions. Psychics are frequently asked the same questions. How can I find a partner? How can I end a relationship? How can I increase my finances if you are in a relationship that you want to get out of? Use that all-powerful tool blessing with love. Affirm, I bless you with love, and I release you. You are free, and I am free. This should be done frequently. Then be very clear about what you do want in a relationship. Make a list if necessary. Meanwhile, work on loving yourself constantly and love and accept the other person completely as they are. One of two things will happen automatically as you change and grow on the inside. The other person will either align with your desires or disappear entirely. If they disappear from your life, this transition will be painless. Always begin with self-love and appreciation. Everything else will be different. Use the affirmation, I now realize how wonderful I am. I choose to enjoy and love myself. It is critical to clean up and resolve old relationships before committing to a new one. If you are constantly talking about or thinking about your previous love, you are not yet free to enter the new one. We may deify our previous love to protect ourselves from being vulnerable in the present moment. In her book, she describes a return to love. Marianne Williamson shares this excellent barometer for our decisions. She claims that in every interaction, we are either moving towards or away from love to be completely happy and alive. We want to make decisions in our lives that lead us to love. As you work to overcome the obstacles that are impeding your relationship, experiment with being your own lover. Give yourself the gift of romance and love. Prove to yourself how unique you are. Take care of yourself. Give yourself small tokens of kindness and appreciation. Purchase flowers for yourself. Surround yourself with pleasing colors, textures, and scents. Life always reflects back to us what we are feeling on the inside. The right person to share your growing sense of intimacy will be drawn to you like a magnet as your inner sense of love and romance grows. Most importantly, you will not have to give up any of your personal intimacy in order to be with that person. When an affair ends, it is common for us to fall into the I'm not good enough routine and punish ourselves. We believe this because the other person no longer wishes to spend time with us. There must be something wrong with us, and we frequently experience deep despair. However, it is not true that there is something wrong with us. Every relationship is a learning experience. We get together for a short time. For as long as we can, we share energy and experiences. We learn what we can together, and then it's time to part ways. This is perfectly normal and natural. Avoid the pain of partying by not clinging to an old romantic relationship. Don't put up with physical or emotional abuse just to be with someone. Clinging to old experiences will never lead to a fulfilling life. When we allow ourselves to be disrespected, we are saying, I am not worthy of love, so I must stay here and accept this behavior. I can't stand being alone with myself, and I'm pretty sure I will never find another relationship. These negative affirmations depress you. Instead, pay attention to the signals. When a relationship ends, life gives you the opportunity to try something new. This can be a time for deep gratitude, acknowledging the good times you had together and appreciating all of the learning experiences, after which you can let go of that relationship with love and move on with your life. This is the time to love yourself tenderly and understandingly. This is not the end of the world for you. It's the beginning of a new phase of self-love. This new chapter in your life has the potential to be far more wonderful than the one you've just finished. Affirmations for your personal relationships. I've come here to discover that there is only love. I'm realizing how wonderful I am. I choose to appreciate myself as a magnificent creation of a loving God. I am infinitely loved and accept it now. I am ready and willing to be in a wonderful, loving relationship. By thinking positive, loving thoughts, I establish a loving and supportive relationship. I welcome love into my heart. It is safe for me to express my feelings of love. Everyone gets along with me. There is joy and laughter wherever I go. I speak from the bottom of my heart. People adore me, and I adore them. I'm at peace with life. I have always had the ideal partner in my life. My love for myself keeps me safe and secure. I have a good relationship with life. Life adores me, and I am secure. I encircle everyone in my life in a circle of love, regardless of gender. I include my friends, family, co-workers, and anyone from my past. I affirm that I have wonderful, harmonious relationships with everyone in which mutual respect and care are shown on both sides. I live in dignity, peace, and joy. I broaden my circle of love to encompass the entire planet, and this love multiplies within me. There is unconditional love within me, and I express it to everyone. My unconditional love includes me because I know I am worthy of being loved. I adore and value myself. That is correct.
The softer you are, the less rigid you are, the more flexible you are as a person, the more you can accomplish. And this is a great way to practice in parenting as well. And this idea that a rigid thought, how many times have you heard this idea that if I tell you something, I'm going to stay consistent with it? We have a set of rules, these are the rules, and we'll do it this way. In the Tao it says the more rules you make, the more rule breakers you create. It's true. The more rules you have in your house about how everything has to go. We had in our house, my wife would have a big jar of M&Ms. Peanuts, you know, all these different multicolored ones. And the kids in our house, because we didn't feed them sugar and we didn't give them sodas and stuff like that. So they were just more like a decoration. Every once in a while someone would take them. They'd hardly ever be replaced. Now when we had kids come over to our house who weren't ever allowed to have such horrible things, you should have seen their behavior. You know, they would scoop them up, they'd be putting them in their pockets, and they'd get their purses, and they'd open it up, and, you know, the whole thing would be empty. I said, what are you doing? He said, well, you mean you could just have these whenever you want them? I said, well, we don't really have any rules about that. It's just, it's not something that we encourage or discourage. It's just there. It's like Emerson had a wonderful line. He said, a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. A foolish consistency, a rigid consistency. So that there are many people who will say, if I say it on Monday, you can be absolutely certain that on Wednesday, I'm going to believe the same thing, regardless of what might happen on Tuesday. Now, Tuesday might have something real that you might want to be changing your mind. You might want to say, you know, I thought that this time, but now I've seen this, and now we can shift. And you can see how this can become and so much about the Tao is on leadership. Leadership in the family, leadership in the community, leadership geopolitically. Less rigidity, more openness, more willingness to listen and say, I changed my mind. Because a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. And what I believed on Wednesday has changed because of what happened on Tuesday. Now, another important thing to say to your children, to your friends, to your lover, to your spouses, to whomever, to the people you work with, words that we're so terrified to say, but which give us a sense of living with the Tao. I don't know. I don't know. I'll look it up. Say it. I don't know. Doesn't hurt. Say it again. I don't know. Isn't it fearful? I mean, so many people, and it's like very freeing, because my kids ask me something, and I say, I don't know. They say, Dad, you know everything. You know everything. I said, well, I don't know that, and I'll look it up, or we'll try to find an answer to that, but I don't quite know. I know that even, you know, I spent 20 years running, and I ran every day for 20 years, for 22 years, without missing a day. 8 miles. Never missed a day. That's rigid. All right? Some call that obsessive. But you brush your teeth every day, I used to say, and you don't call that obsessive. And you go to the bathroom every day, and you don't say, well, he's obsessively doing that again today. You don't do that. But anyway, what I learned is that even in the world of exercise, there are certain things that are built in to make us rigid, to make us stiff, to make us hard. And we lift, and we run, and we kick, and this is what we call working out. There's another kind of working out that is ancient. It goes back to the time of Lao Tzu and before, which is called yoga. And yoga means union. It means union with your source. And when you do yoga, you can stay in the same place. You can do the equivalent of 8 miles. When I used to run 8 miles, I had to run 4 miles that way, turn around, 4 miles back. And I'd be sweating. Now I can do yoga, and I can just stand in one place. And in 90 minutes, by being supple, by making myself stretch, by not being hard and rigid, I can get that out there, I can get that leg up, I can do these kinds of things. And 90 minutes later, it's like I'm totally sweating and I feel so different. I used to, when I would go out at night to eat or something, after running so many miles, running marathons and doing those things, I'd go to get up and it would be, okay, it's going to take a little while, because everything was so, that doesn't happen anymore, because I've given up hard. I've given up being rigid and substituted it for being supple, for being flexible, for living a life in which I don't have to always be so fierce. Listen to this verse of the Tao Te Ching. It's one of my all-time favorites, verse number 76. A man is born gentle and weak. At his death, he becomes hard and stiff. All things, including the grass and the trees, are soft and pliable in life, dry and brittle in death. Stiffness is thus a companion in death. Flexibility is a companion in life. And it's not just for how you exercise, it's how you think, The solution for me represents the ability to bring to your life something that can make these things called problems disappear, dissolve, and nullify. And that is what I spoke about when I opened up here a little while ago about energy. Energy comes in the form of fast and slow, high and low. And higher and faster energy nullifies lower and slower energy. A room full of darkness. Darkness is a lower and a slower energy, if you measure it, than is light. And when you bring light to the presence of a dark room, the darkness disappears. And that is a metaphor for every single one of the problems and concerns and struggles that you are facing in your life. And way back, 800 years ago, there lived a little man who gave up all of his possessions. He lived in a little village in Italy, near Florence, called Assisi. And we named one of our most famous cities in America after him. His name was Francesco, or as he became known later after his passing, St. Francis of Assisi. And I went to Assisi, and I had miracles that took place for me in visiting Assisi on several occasions. And St. Francis was one of these people who created a prayer that is perhaps the most well-known prayer on the planet today, certainly one of them. How can I become an instrument of thy peace? The ego is the part of us that wants to be at war, that wants to defeat, that wants to collect, that wants to be better than, that wants to always get more. The sacred, or the highest part of ourselves, is the part of us that just wants to be at peace. How can I become an instrument of peace? Not someone who's looking for peace, but someone who delivers it. There are opportunities every day. I was in a gas station just a few days ago, and in this gas station they had a car wash. And there was a young boy, he was maybe 18 or 19 years old, and he didn't speak English very well, and he couldn't figure out how to work the car wash. And he had put $2 in, and apparently it required $3. And he was in there waiting to pay for his his car wash and trying to get an answer to why he couldn't get it to work. And I had just gotten some gasoline, and I walked in, and there was this man behind the counter berating this young boy and humiliating him and talking to him. And because he didn't understand the language, he talked louder to him. You know how people do that? You know, if someone doesn't understand you, you say, "What I said is," and they say, "I don't understand," and then you say it even louder. Well, that's what he was doing to this young boy. And I saw this is an opportunity right here in this instant to be an instrument of peace. And I put my arm around the young man and I said, "Come with me." And I walked out to the machine and I took $1 and I put it into and he walked away and he was just so happy. One tiny little incident. These kinds of things, I suggest to you that you take this day and look for 5 occasions to be an instrument of peace. And you'll find one when you're on your way home, on the freeway. You'll find somebody who isn't going to let you get in. You find somebody who doesn't want to let you pass. And instead of, giving them a hard time or being angry at them, try sending something called peace their way. There's a wonderful line that I have on the dashboard of my car. It says, "I can choose peace rather than this." And it's always a reminder that no matter how what I'm experiencing in my life, I want to be an instrument of peace. It's been said that the 3 most difficult things to do in the world are this. The first is to send love in response to hatred. The second is to defend the absent. That is, whoever's being gossiped about, you become their spokesperson. I do this with my children all the time when they're all saying this and then she said that and he said that. I'll say, "Excuse me, but who is defending the absent person here?" "Well, why should anybody defend her?" I'll say, "Well, I'll just take her position right now if you don't mind." And the third is to admit when you were wrong. And it doesn't mean necessarily to say, "I just made a mistake." It means to say, "I have been making the wrong kinds of choices in my life with my mind. I've been putting my attention on what I don't want, on what others want for me, on what the world ought to be, on what it used to be, and I can't understand why it just keeps showing up, what I don't want, what others want for me, what I despise." I have to admit, I have to rewrite my agreement with reality. And so much of what St. Francis was speaking about back in the 13th century, because he was a man who was ridiculed wherever he went. And he was just out there trying to teach people to bring the solution, spiritual solution to your problems. If hatred is existing in your world, that's an energy field. It's a lower and a slow energy than the energy of love. If you can bring love to the presence of that hatred, it will be nullified just as if you were bringing light to darkness. But for most of us, what we do when we see hatred is we respond in kind to that hatred. Whatever choice you make in every interaction you have, make the choice to be at peace, your sacred or higher self says. Whereas your ego says, "Oh, no. It's much more important to be right." And so we find people in relationships struggling a lot. And one of the things that they struggle about is who's right and who's wrong. Most of the fights that you have in your relationships really basically, oftentimes you forget the details, but it's basically about who's right and who's wrong. So that if you want to have your higher or your sacred part of you ruling in your life, I suggest this to you. Practice being kind rather than right. When you have the choice, and you have the choice in your relationships with your spouse and your ex-spouse, with your parents, with your grandparents, with your in-laws, with strangers on the freeway, with flight attendants, with waiters, with whomever you interact, if you can just subdue this ego part of you which says, "It's important for me to be right," which will introduce you to stress and anxiety and fear and so much of the stuff that I talked about earlier, and instead say, "How can I suspend this part of me and allow the part of me that wants to be at peace, that wants to be happy, that wants to be fulfilled." And if I said to you, "I'm going to give you a magic wand, and with this magic wand, I am going to allow you to just wave it and get anything that you want. Whatever you want. You can have this, you can have this car, you can have these nice clothes over here, you can have this home, whatever it is." Or I said to you, in lieu of that, I'm going to give you another wand, and you can wave this, and for every moment for the rest of your life, you'll be at peace. Whatever comes along, you'll be able to choose peace. And basically, we know that we're only here for a very short time. And being able to choose peace, which is what the sacred part of you begs you, the higher self. Once you get that, you begin to shift away, and you stop telling yourself that the people who are close to me, in relationship with me, are the people who don't belong there. I remember my wife and I, we often talk about this, and we've been together a long time. We've had many children together, and we have a very wonderful, loving relationship. Thank you. But we'd often, and one time I said to her, or she said to me, you know, we love each other, but this doesn't sound like love. Sometimes the way we talk to each other doesn't sound like love. Let's practice with each other, being kind rather than being right. And it was transformative that when we had that walk. And doing that with your children, and doing that with a waiter. I mean, a waiter who comes to you and is like, you know, hassled and frazzled and has been busy and all of that, and your ego says, wait a minute, I'm here and I'm important, and I have a right to be served, and I have a right to be served now. That's the ego part of you. If you can suspend that and say, you know, you are a lucky man tonight. You got somebody who's dealing from his sacred self. And I understand. And you take your time, and you come to me, and you bring it at your convenience, whenever you can. I'm willing to suspend my... And you know what? You'll get served so fast, and with such gratitude, just for being kind, if you practice it. Every single one of us are in relationship. Whether it's with our husbands and wives, with our ex-husbands and wives, with our children, our grandchildren, whether it's with people we drive along the freeway next to, whether it's with waiters and waitresses, or baggage handlers, or flight attendants, or people that we are in line to get into the movie. We're all in relationships, and we interact with each other all the time. And probably the best lesson that I've ever learned in my life about how to be in a relationship in a way which is powerful and happy and fulfilling is to remember this sentence. When you have a choice, and you always do, to be right or to be kind, start picking kind. The ego part of us wants to be right. How dare you not serve me as fast as I think I deserve to be served? How dare you say something to me? And immediately we want to make that other person wrong and make ourselves right. But there's a part of each one of us that wants to be happy, it wants to be at peace. And that part of us says, it doesn't matter whether you're right, it doesn't matter about your ego. All you want is to be at peace, so pick kind. This kind of an attitude, if we had more of this, not only in our own personal lives, would we improve virtually every relationship we have with all of the people closest to us and all of the strangers we interact with. But on our planet as well, we would begin to understand the wisdom that on a round planet, there's no choosing up sides, that we're all one. We're all breathing the same air. We're all drinking the same water. We're all being warmed by the same sun. And as they say, as the Native Americans used to say, no tree has branches so foolish as to fight among themselves. It applies in your relationships, and it applies as a people as well. You begin to sense there's trouble ahead. And so you look at a group of people that are standing on a corner and you think that could be trouble. And your intuition says, run around them rather than next to them. And you run and you avoid that. And something tells you when you're walking out of a parking lot, there's some intuitive sense that says, I think I should have somebody accompany me when I'm doing this. And you listen to that intuition. Sometimes it isn't there and it's not necessary. When it's there, you pay attention. You begin, synchronicity isn't any more confusing than the thought that exists between a mother and her baby. It's not any more difficult to understand than the idea of a remote control in your television set. And when we then have these synchronistic events in which we access our intuition, and what I'm suggesting is that when you reach these higher frequencies, intuition, insight, creativity, all of these things become negotiable. You can access them. You have the knowing. Because when you form a picture in your head of what you would like to attract into your life, you can begin to attract abundance and virtually anything else that you put your attention on. It's a law of the universe. Get that picture. See yourself as if you already are what you'd like to become. And every great artist, every great thinker is able to do just that. They have been able to see themselves as completing something. Do you know how difficult it is for so many people who get into a doctoral program? I think the statistics are that out of every 10 people admitted into a PhD program, 1 completes it. 9 out of 10 never complete it because they can't picture themselves writing a dissertation. The reason that I knew when I entered the doctoral program and was told that 9 out of 10 don't complete it, I already saw myself as having my doctorate. And I just knew that that was something that I had to do. And I suggest that there are people right in here, there are physicians in here, who probably entered medical school. There's a lady right here in the front who entered medical school. How many women who enter medical school complete the entire process and become medical doctors and have a practice? It's getting higher, but the statistics are against you as you enter something like that. But if you see yourself as having a practice, you see yourself as a healer, you see yourself as someone who is capable of becoming a doctor or anything else in your life, if you see it and get that picture, and I can't tell you, I try to teach this to my children. My daughter who wants to sing, I just said, sing. See yourself as a singer. Get that picture, and no matter what comes your way, don't ever let anybody ever tell you that it won't happen. You can let them tell you, and all you have to do is use that as a way to step into the gap and then out of the gap over here into the world of spirit and bring that energy of knowing, that energy of insight, that energy of intuition. Are you listening, Jennifer? Because if you have that picture, there's nothing that can stop you. And you don't evaluate whether or not you are successful on the basis of whether people buy your CDs. That's the biggest mistake you could make. Or whether people read your books. Or whether people want to come and hear your lectures or buy your tapes. You don't do it that way. You evaluate whether or not you are a success by being one of those people who's on the road that's hardly ever crowded and enjoying everything that they do because they're seeing themselves as someone who couldn't be any place else. And you no longer find enlightenment through suffering. You no longer find enlightenment through having an awareness in the moment of what it is that you need to do to learn the lesson that's happening for you right now. You are now a person who's out in front of yourself, and you see it coming. And that makes you a master who lives coincidences, not in the sense of them being accidents, but having a perfect fit.
I think the most important thing that you can get out of this is to understand that you are a choice-making individual, and that all of the conditions that you find yourself in your life, all of the circumstances of your life, all of the emotional reactions that you have to all of the people and all of the things and events and so on that take place in your life are really choices. And that's a very difficult thing for a lot of people to get, because they're raised to believe that I can't help the way I feel. I have a right to be miserable when somebody treats me in a certain way. I can't help it. I've always been that way. It's just my nature. It's just the kind of person that I am.
This waiter was directly from Italy and was serving this wonderful pasta and all of these things. And he was a madman. He was a maniac. Every customer was getting him all upset. He would talk to the other head waiters and running back and forth and getting himself all worked up. Finally, I said, come on over here. He said, what are you doing this for? I do this all the time. You do therapy wherever you go, right? I said, what are you taking this so serious? All you're doing is serving spaghetti. It's no big deal. I said to him, you know, before you're 50 years old, you're going to have a heart attack. Guarantee it, if you continue to behave that way every day. He said, look, what do you expect from me? I'm Italian. So, oh, well, that explains it. I mean, his rationale for his behavior was, I can't do anything about it, I inherited it. You know, I just got deficient anger genes. I've heard kids say that, you know, when they're failing math. I can't help it. My father was lousy at math, my grandfather was lousy. I inherited, you know, deficient math genes. It's just not my fault. I can't do anything about it. The fact is that anything that goes on inside of you that is immobilizing, that gets in your way, that keeps you from functioning in the ways that you would like to function, that stops you from reaching your goals, whatever they may be in your life, anything inside, you choose. It's yours. You own it all. And if you don't like anything about yourself, anything, are you shy? Are you nervous? Are you afraid? Are you somebody who can't handle getting up in front of groups because it scares you? Are you someone who gets angry too much? Do you find yourself being manipulated and controlled by other people too often? Are you afraid to stand up for what you believe? Are you a terrible cook? Are you lousy at tennis? You haven't got a backhand? Whatever it may be, it doesn't make any difference. You are the sum total of the choices that you make in your life. If you don't buy that, if you buy into another system, which a lot of psychologists will teach you, which is, it's in your unconscious. You can't help it. After all, you're a middle child. What do you expect from a middle child? You know, certainly can't have any identity of your own. Or maybe you're an only child. Oh, God. Maybe you're the youngest of 12. You had 11 parents, you know, all your life. Somebody telling you what to do from the time or maybe you were the oldest and you had to be a parent for 9 others or whatever. You can use any excuse that you want, or you can just say, the devil made me do it, or it's God's fault. You know, a lot of people blame God. God and Mother are most responsible for all of the things that are wrong with us, you know. The classic, the one I heard over and over and over again in all the years, and I announced it on network television one night. You know, I said, I came here tonight for one reason. I want to tell everybody in America that your mother liked your sister better. I heard it every day for 20 years. You know, it must be true. I can't do it. My mother liked my sister better. No wonder I can't. She was the one that got all the attention. I didn't get anything. Her pictures and all the photographs. Nothing for me. I know some of you don't have a sister and you think, well, then that's not the reason. She wanted one. Really. And she would have liked her better. I guarantee it, you know. It's taking responsibility for everything that goes on in your life, which is what Wayne Dyer is about, if you really want to take it home to anybody else. No blame is allowed for anything that goes on in your life. Virtually everything in your life boils down to what kinds of attitudes, what kinds of beliefs do you have about any given situation. You try to set your expectations in such a way so that you understand that your life is nothing more than a series of choices.
So many people are consumed by their past and living as if the things that happen to them in their life are the reasons why their life isn't going the way they would like it to go today. I'd like to suggest to you that in this principle, which I call giving up your personal history, I'd like to suggest to you that all of that is wonderful to talk about in therapy, and you can get a lot of help literally for going back and examining the things in your past that perhaps are troubling for you. But the illusion is that these are the things or the reasons why your life is not working the way you would like it to work today. That is the illusion. It's the illusion that Alan Watts spoke about when he used the metaphor of the wake of the boat. That the wake of a boat is nothing more than the trail that is left behind. If you stand on the back of a speedboat and watch it, it's a wonderful metaphor. You can get that picture in your head. You can simply see how it is all just a trail that is left behind. And if you ask yourself, what's driving the boat? What's making it go forward? The answer is that what's making it go forward is the present moment energy that is being generated by the engine in this moment, now. And that's the only thing that can make the boat go forward. And the most important question to ask yourself about this little metaphor is it possible for the wake to drive the boat? Can a wake, that is, can a trail that is left behind make a boat go forward? And of course the answer to that is no, and thus it is also true for your life. That the wake of your life is also a trail that is left behind. And this trail that is left behind is just that. It is not what is making you inefficient, poor, unhappy, depressed, stressful, sick, in bad relationships, and so on. Even though we like to think that, and we like to put the responsibility for those things on all of these events that took place in our past, the fact is, the way I look at the past, is that everything that happened to us in the past had to happen in order for us to be where we are today. And the evidence that I have for that is that it did. And there's nothing else to say about it. It did, and it can't be undone. 1,000 years ago, a man named Omar Khayyam, who was a tent maker in the Muslim world, observed, "The moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on. Nor all thy piety nor wit can lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out one word of it." He knew that in the Middle Ages. And yet we've got people who are consumed with the belief that because of the way you treated me, because of what you said to me, because of how I was abandoned, because of how I was abused, because of how I was ignored, because of my past, that I lived in this particular set of circumstances, or that these are the reasons why my life is not going the way I would like it to go today. And if there's any advice that I think will help you to get onto the extra mile where it's not very crowded, it came to me from a man named Carlos Castaneda, who I was reading something that he had written in a book called The Fire from Within. And he said, "One day, I finally realized that I no longer needed a personal history." He said, "And just like drinking, I gave it up." And he said, that and only that has made all the difference in my life. So that all of these things and all of these events that transpired, that took place up until now, all you can do to them is thank you. And I'm talking about all of it. Thank you for abandoning me. Thank you for the abuse. Thank you for the struggles. Thank you for all of it, because it is out of those falls and out of those struggles and all of those difficulties that I generated the energy to propel myself to a higher place. And without those falls, without those struggles, without those difficulties, I wouldn't be able to get to the place I am today. I wrote some textbooks back in the early 70s talking about the importance of goals. And I can't have them all withdrawn, but I think that, I watch my kids, and some of them are in college now, and some of them are out, and they're worrying about what they're going to major in, and trying to set a goal, and I tell them, just try to just enjoy every single moment and just let yourself be guided. I think it's great advice for parenting. It's just guide, then just step aside and recognize that all of us have the anchor of the universe located within us. That's what Lao Tzu said. It's in every single one of us. And let yourself be swept with it. Let yourself be taken by it, rather than getting your individual ego in there saying, well, this is what I'm going to do. And it's like Arthur Miller, the great playwright, he was asked a question at an interview with the New York Times. He was 91 years old, and they said to him, are you working on another play? And he said, I don't know. He said, but I probably am. And I understood exactly what he meant. I mean, I just finished writing a book that I put a year of my life into, This Wish is Fulfilled. And last night, I called the president of Hay House, my best friend, Reed Tracy, and I said, there's an idea germinating inside of me that I think will ultimately become a book. I don't know even quite, I just know it's starting to excite me. And I've often been called the father of motivation all over the world. They've got this title they put next to me, and I always say, if I have to be the father of anything other than the 8 children that I have, I would choose to be the father of inspiration, because I think it's the reverse of motivation. Motivation is when you get a hold of an idea and you take it where you believe that you can take it with your goals, and any obstacles that come along, you're going to plow through them, you're going to make this thing happen. And that's motivation. You get a hold of an idea. Inspiration is an idea gets a hold of you, and it takes you where you were intended to go even before you were ever conceived. I can't imagine you as a little boy in Germany were thinking about being one of the most famous authors in the world. I mean, and how it all comes about, and what's going to come next for you. And like you said, I don't even know what words are going to come out next. It's for me, it's just being completely immersed in the now and surrendering, just like turning it over. That's just what I do. I turn it over. And the most amazing things happen when you turn it over. That's when God comes into your life. That's what Carl Jung called synchronicity. You have almost like a collaboration with fate. You're letting it all unfold. When in the midst of your writing, I don't know if it happens for you, but there'll be something I'm not sure or whatever, and all of a sudden I'll go to the mail, or somebody will pick up the phone, and it'll be right there. And it's like, after a while, you start to almost count on it. You start to realize that you don't have to do anything. You can just let it come to you.
Yes.
So I don't think you can be totally free of goals. Like, I have to go to the bathroom. So I'm going to have a goal to go to the toilet, So I don't think I can get totally out of that goal place. But by and large in my life, I just let it be. I think the Beatles had it right. When you find yourself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. There will come an answer, let it be. I don't know, that's my theme.
I think there is a time in people's lives when there is a place for goals, but the important thing is the nature of the goal, and if it arises out of inspiration, as you call it, or a vision that comes to you of something that wants to be created through you. It could be a book. When The Power of Now came to me, I felt this urge suddenly of writing. I bought a yellow notepad and began writing the first line, and at that moment I knew it's a book, and I knew what it was about, and it was very different from the kind of casual writing I had done before over the years, sometimes after sitting with people in having a session, counseling sessions, doing meditation with small groups. I would sometimes say things, and then later I would write them down because that was new to me too, but I said things that I didn't know before, they came out. So that was a more casual writing, and then suddenly an energy stream came of a very different, more empowered kind of writing, and from the very first moment I knew it's a book. So in that sense, one could say I suddenly had the vision of writing a book, one could say. As one could say, I had a goal of producing a book. But it wasn't something that came as with a promise of delivering some kind of personal fulfillment to me in any way, that I can become famous through that, or I can make money through that, or I can become powerful through that, people are going to listen to me. All these could have been motivations for writing a book, but it was more like something, a realization of something that wants to come into being, and then you help it along, you go with it, you become a channel through which that wants to come into being, comes into being.
Everything, remember, has a dharma. Every creature, every rose, and every human being has a dharma. You're already fulfilling it physically. You're already in the bodies that you were intended to be in. Remember what I said before, it is not about where you are, it's about what direction you're headed. And as long as you know you're heading in the direction of staying here in meaning. Now, this concept of a calling, I wrote a whole book about it. It's called Inspiration, in Spirit. And the subtitle is called Your Ultimate Calling. So I'm going to introduce a word here to help you to identify your calling. And that word is passion. And it doesn't make any difference to me whether that passion has anything to do with making a living, or it's a part of the DOT, the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. What is it that you find passion about? And the only condition I place on it is that it is in alignment with God or with your source. All right? So that your passion, if your passion is about killing other people, for example, if your passion is about stealing, if your passion is about, I often said that there's two ways to have the tallest building in town. One of the ways to have the tallest building in town, always, is to go around and knock down anybody else's building when they start getting taller than yours. So as soon as they get up, if you're at the 44 floors and they get to 43, 44, you just go over and you put some explosives in there and you just blow it up. And you just say, I have the tallest building in town. And this is, by the way, our collective ego. This is what we do in our society and in our world, and which is about, if you really want to know my passion and my calling, it's about shifting the entire consciousness of this planet before I leave it. And that's why the film titled The Shift is so significant to me, because I know that if I can get 10 million people to watch that film, The Shift, if I can get 10 million people in America and Canada to watch that film, that we reach something called pi, 3.1416, remember? And if you can get 3.1416% of a population to align, the rest of it's called a critical mass in physics. You reach what is called phase transition. And if you align enough people or electrons or subatomic particles up and align them in a certain way in an energy field, and you reach what they call the 100th monkey, when you reach that point, all the rest of the electrons or the people in that energy field begin to align as well. And we have aligned ourselves collectively with a consciousness that allows for people to knock down other people's buildings. The other way to have the tallest building in town is to always work on your own building and not be concerned with anybody else's building. or what anyone else out there is doing, or being consumed with trying to compete with, or win, or defend. To listen to your calling. So, your calling is the thing within you that has your attention, that has your passionate attention. And it doesn't make any difference whether it makes sense to anybody else. It's the thing that you feel inside of you that you're here for. It's Mr. Holland in Mr. Holland's opus. And here's the secret. Here's the thing that I learned. That it's the presence of the passion. That when you have the presence of the passion within you for what it is that you feel is your calling, everything else will take care of itself. That is an indication that you have God within you and guiding you. The word enthusiasm, and theos, iasm, translates to the God within in Greek. The God within. When you are enthusiastic about something, anything, when you have that kind of internal knowing that this is what I'm doing. And sometimes you have to, that Shakespeare's, he wasn't just a great writer, he was an incredible philosopher. Probably the most famous lines from Shakespeare are from Hamlet. To be or not to be, that is the question. And that's a very profound question. But what follows that is much more profound. He said, after to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the minds of men to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and thus by opposing end them. You have to ask the question, and that's what this program is about, and that's what the movie is about, and that's what the book is about, and that's what all of it is about. To be or not to be. Am I going to be who I came into this world to be, and there's something inside of me that has always been calling me to it? Or am I going to allow the slings and arrows of an outrageous fortune that has been imposed upon me by others to dictate my dharma? That's really the question. And it's a question that you can answer and respond to and live with